is Tracy, and today I'm going to be doing a real talk for you guys. And before we get started, I just realized I'm very excited to start my new job for a lot of reasons, and one of those reasons is that I don't have to wear black in every single freaking video because that's my dress code and I have to wear black all the time, and I'm so happy that I can finally start to wear like real people clothes. Just a side note, but I'm very excited for that. So, let's get into it. I've been wanting to do this video for kind of a while, I would say. I kind of wanted to do this because I think it's applicable, I would really say, I think in a lot of different formats. The whole idea of like change and like testing things out, because I think what happens a lot of times is like someone builds a deck and then they don't really edit it. And I'm not just talking about like sideboard, because sideboard should just always be changing. That's really what it should be. Every single time, like not like every single time, but like if you go to different events, you should be changing up your sideboard. I mean like the main deck. I feel like a lot of times like people get super set in their deck because they're like, oh, like this is what's working and this is what's great. And they're really scared to go out and venture off and try out different things. And I think it's really like this with, I'd say, a lot, I guess like a couple of different decks, but I'm particularly thinking of a deck like Jund in Modern for some reason. I don't really know why, because I think there's there's a lot of different versions of that deck, but there's a lot of different versions of a lot of decks where decks kind of like do one thing and do the other and like that whole thing. Like some decks are like, oh, I run like a Huntsmaster of the Fells, or I run one of those, but some versions don't. When I did the whole thing on Abzan, like, some people really haven't even heard of Abzan decks without Tarmogoyf in them. Some people just, they think Abzan and they're like, oh yeah, like Tarmogoyf, right? And it's like, no, there are versions without that. And so I think a lot of times what happens is that people see change as a really bad thing, and they're like, well, no, I can't do that because it's bad, or this deck is already working, so why would I change it? And I say, well, your deck may be great and your deck may be working, and that's awesome, but why not change something and see how it works? And you know what? I say this to Paul all the time because he'll be like editing, because you know that's like basically what we play now, is we play EDH all the time. And so like when he'll get cards for like his Karn deck is like his baby. Like he spent a lot of money in that, he's foiling it out, and you know that's like his thing, right? And with that sort of deck, like, you know, he gets kind of a little like, you know, he likes to try new things, because whenever, like, sets come out with artifacts, he's like, okay, what can I put in Karn? It's really cool. And I always say to him, I was like, Paul, I was like, if you don't like it, you can change it back. Like, I don't know if people don't understand that, but I feel like they just don't. Because it's like, well, if I make this change, I can never go back. And I'm like, no. If you test out a card a couple times, and I'm talking about, like, thoroughly testing it. Like, I'm not talking about, like, you play it for 5 minutes and you hate it, and it's like, no. Like when, okay, in Grixis Control, when I played with Jace Vryn's Prodigy for a little bit, I absolutely hated him. I played with him for a couple times and I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm not feeling it. No thank you. One really good thing to do as well is to proxy up a card. So say you're like, I don't really know how this card's gonna work. It's a really expensive card. I don't really want to buy it. You know, as long as you're playing like casually amongst your friends to test out your deck, be like, hey man, listen, I'm just testing out this one card. Hope that's cool by you. I just kind of want to see that whole, you know, how this works. Another thing too is don't make too many changes if you're going to be changing out cards. So say for example, you're like, I have like 4 copies of this one card, but I find, let's just say 3. I have 3 copies of this one card. I find the card not really effective. Let me try something else. So then what you do is you're like, I'm gonna pick this other one card and have 3 copies of it and do that trade, and let's just see how it is. Don't like change like 50 of your 60 cards and be like, yeah, okay, let's go. No, because you need to do those little changes. Also keep in mind too that your mana base may need to change. If you're changing out a card that has like a higher mana cost or a lower mana cost, or, you know, it's green and you're switching from, you know, 20 green symbols to 15 green symbols, your mana base needs to change. You need to change your mana base so that you can cast those cards. Again, I think proxying is a really good idea, especially with something like lands. Lands are expensive. Fetch lands, chalk lands. You want to make sure you're, you know, trading, you know, you want to make sure before you buy them, it's a change that you want to make, that you want to purchase those, and it's going to be a good investment for you, and cards that you really want. So yeah, I think too, like, with new sets coming out, you know, a lot of people do this thing where they'll see a new set and they'll be like, I think this card's going to be used in Modern. I think this card's going to be used, etc. And you know what? Even if there aren't cards that people are like, I think, you know what, like this, I don't think this card's going to make it into any format except for standard. You know, I think it's going to be heavily played in standard, but not in any other competitive formats. Prove them wrong. It's like one of my favorite things to do. I love playing cards that people don't really know of, or cards that people think, oh, that card's bad, you could be running this. And that's a really tricky thing, I think, to say, because again, everyone's version is different. So say like you have like 2 copies of a deck and that they match card for card except for like 3 cards, for example. Like say 3 cards are different out of that sort of thing. You know, then I think it gets a little bit easier to say, well, this version is doing this, and I think it's a little bit easier than I'm changing 20 of my cards are different from this to this, because you could say, hey, why aren't you running Tarmogoyf in Abzan? Let's just throw that example out there. And I'm like, well, I'm not running Tarmogoyf because I'm running this, this, and this. So when you say you should be running Tarmogoyf, it's like, but I have these spots and they're being filled, and I'm running X, Y, and Z to fill that void of not running Tarmogoyf. Another thing too that I absolutely love doing that really throws people off is I absolutely love running one-ofs. Some people think they're like, you know what, you need to be running at least 3 versions of the card. I absolutely love one-ofs. It's one of my favorite things, especially in sideboard. I have a sideboard that a lot of times, you know, some people sideboards like 4 of, 3 of, mine's like 1, 1, 1, 1, because you know what, like certain cards are going to be used in situations that I don't need to necessarily draw that card, you know, but it's sweet to have. If I draw that card, it's going to be really helpful if I sideboard that in. So if you're changing cards up, you know, again, maybe just start small and start with like, hey, let me try 1 copy of this card, and if I find it's really good, you know, try like testing it out. But I think people are really just scared of change, and you know what, again, you can always change it back. Always, always, always. If you don't like it, just go back to what it's already been. But I think to dismiss a lot of ideas and to just say, well, that's not good, well, that's not working. It's like, have you really thoroughly tested it out? Why isn't it working? And there's a whole video talking about like, when, you know, you identify what cards are good cards and what cards are bad cards, why is that? Can you explain to me in a well-given paragraph why you think Tarmogoyf is a good card? I always nag on Tarmogoyf. That's like one of my things. I always like, Tarmogoyf, but don't leave a paragraph in the description about why you think Tarmogoyf is good. Like, don't do that. But you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, can you explain why these cards, and that's the same thing too, is with changes. Can you explain why you're changing this card in here? Can you say, well, the reason why I'm changing this is to do X, Y, and Z, etc., etc. So yeah, guys, change is great. Definitely do it. There's been a lot of changes in my life, not necessarily magic related, but I don't know, I've been in kind of like the things are changing and things are really going really well for me, and I think that it's just a whole thing of it being scared to kind of make that step. And I'm kind of a person who sticks, I would say, to my own thing, you know? But I think like after like graduating in December, I feel like it's kind of like, well, now everything's really different and now everything's new, and it's like exploring the world and whatnot. So yeah, okay, that was it for talking about change. I think this was really good. I think this was pretty short, I think this was shorter. I feel like I've been, not purposely, but a lot of these videos have been a little bit shorter, which is good. I think you guys like that. And yeah, I will talk to you guys later. Bye!